three siblings in the front of my grandmother's house. And my mother saw an unusual car approaching our village. Then she quickly realized, wait a minute, I think this is child protection. So then she began to hide all of us. And once child protection approached my grandmother's house, curious little me, 5 years old, I came out of the hiding place and I made myself known to them. And then they began telling me, hey, we would like to take you for a ride. And of course, as a little 5-year-old who has never been inside of a car before, I was super excited to go on this adventure that they were telling me about. And so I got inside the car, and I remember looking back through the rear windshield, and I saw my grandmother and my mother clinging onto each other's arms, sobbing, watching their little girl being physically taken away from them. At that moment, I knew that something was terribly wrong. And little did I know that that was the last time that I was going to be with my family. Later that day, I arrived at the child service office. They handed me clothes, shoes, toiletry, and they said to me, you are never going to go back to your family. There's a foster mom who's coming in a couple of minutes, and you are going to go live with her. As a 5-year-old, hearing that, I felt scared. I started to cry. I was confused. I thought I was just going to go for an adventure and come back to my family after. But that was not reality. So when I arrived to my foster mom's house, and hearing the door close behind me, and her once again telling me, you are not going back to your family, so get over it. And I remember that night, as a 5-year-old girl, I was kicking and screaming at the door, begging, let me out, I want to go back, I want to go back. And all I remember was just crying myself to sleep. And that's where my 5 years journey in foster care began. One of the hardest times in foster care was actually seeing my birth family in the town that I was living in. And this was not, they came to see me and we saw each other. No. This was, I was walking by with my foster mom, and I saw my father sitting down at a bar. And I remember tapping on my foster mom, and I said, hey, look, there's my father. Can I please go say hi to him? But then I was hit with the reality that I was not allowed to see any family member unless it was through official visitation. And another time was when I was with my foster mom again, and I saw my mother walking by with my siblings. This one really hit me because I got to see my siblings being with my mother, and yet I was not able to approach them once again. So as a child, I felt hopeless. I felt like nobody wanted to love me. I felt like I didn't mean anything because clearly my family walking on by and us locking eyes and just crying and just moving on with our day like that didn't happen. But then one day, I received the wonderful news. I was 10 years old. My foster mom came to me and said, there's a family from America who's interested in adopting you. As a 10-year-old, adoption was foreign to me. I didn't know what it was, let alone I didn't know what America was. I thought it sounded like it was around the corner until I got into a plane that I didn't even know a plane existed. And that's when the reality hit, wow, there's a whole nother world out there that I did not know of. But the hardest thing in those years was seeing foster kids reunite with their family. And yet I was still there, left to cry in my pillow every night, wondering, Why couldn't I have been that person, that child going back with their family? And so I got the news, 6 weeks, they said, you have 6 weeks to spend time, with this family. You'll be living with them for this 6 weeks. They're coming from America. They don't speak Spanish. And of course, I didn't speak English. And so this whole communication was like sleep, hungry, eat. But you know what? When there's connection, language does not matter. I felt the genuine love through their spirit that made me feel at home. And my father, he's actually here today. Some of you guys know who he is. Dr. Jeff Spencer. He's my father. He was that one guy in my life that took that leap of faith, who believed in me and saw that my circumstances and the cruelty that was imposed upon me, that it was not my fault. And he saw that there was more to life in me that he wanted to bring. And so there are 5 things I learned from this experience in having a father like Dr. Jeff Spencer. The first thing I learned was the significance of trust. When I was first adopted, I wanted to test the waters. I wanted to see if truly what they were saying is truly what they meant, if they were really going to stick around. And so for over a course of a decade, I deliberately engaged in disruptive behavior, said hurtful things to them, to see if they were truly capable of staying in my life and not abandon me like my birth family had. And in this, I learned that trust can be fragile, but when nurtured, it can foster deep connections. And my parents, they proved that to me, which allowed me to be the person that I am today. And the second valuable lesson I learned was the importance of giving grace. You see, my parents, my father, he never held anything against me. He always told me, all the cruelty that was posed upon you, that's not who you are. You, as my mother would say, you have seeds of greatness within you. We just have to tap into it. And my father would say, there's only one of you in all of creation, Kin. You are unique. Don't be average. Every day after I would head to school, those were the last words my father would say. Don't be average, kid. And some of my peers look at me, what is your dad saying? Don't be average. But those little phrases is what helped navigate my life and is what helped me stand here tall in confidence, in knowing that we are called to bigger and better things, that we have to get past those traumas or past those negative things in our heads, because we all have a calling. And another thing I learned was the significance of having a strong support system. You see, my parents, they could have walked out. Those 10 years that I put them through literally hell, they could have said, enough, throw the towel in, we want to send her back, we don't want to do this anymore. But to them, it was forgiveness no matter what it was. That they were willing to take that leap of faith and said, we are going to get through this together. We are each going to call each other to a higher game. And that has always been my mindset. With the relationships I make, how I, how I speak to my daughter. Because we all have a calling, like I said. And we are all humans. And there's nothing more powerful than the human spirit. And we all have a story. And as James said, when you change your story, you can change your destiny. And I am a proof of that. And I encourage you guys to also be that and share your stories with others, because we need it more than ever before. We live in a world where we yearn for more than what has been given, and that is real connection. Thank you.